ladies and gentlemen, students, faculty, staff. Very happy to be here. This is the 87th death anniversary of Waleed Iqbal. On the 21st of April, 1938, he met his maker at a relatively young age of 61. And before I go to his teachings on the subject, I regret to inform you that according to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Parity Index report, Pakistan ranks, well, they issue their report every year in December. So the report relating to 2024 has ranked Pakistan as second last in the world, 145th in 146 countries. The only country which is ranked lower than Pakistan is Sudan. Bangladesh, for example, is ranked 99, and India is ranked 129. So there is some competition between Pakistan and India in some senses. That Pakistan's ranking is at 145th, and India is ranked at 129th. In Pakistan, 36% of women participate in economic activities, and only 23% are part of the workforce, as compared to gents who are approximately 84%. So this statistic by itself, that women's participation in the workforce is at a level which is about 1/4, I would say, of men's participation, 24% versus about 84%. However, having said that, if you go back to the basics, so I have in front of me a letter that Allama Iqbal wrote on the 7th of January 1929. And this was addressed to the Muslim Women's Association, Madras. They had invited him to address them in Madras over there, and had sent, in Urdu it's called a Sapasnama, but as a thank you note, a thank you letter was sent by Muslim Women's Association, Madras, to Allama Iqbal. And in response to that, now this is called going back to the basics. I gave you what today's situation is, and I'm taking you back to nearly 100 years ago, 7th of January 1929. He writes there, I would be hard pressed. He says, I would be hard pressed to come across a man whose, the signs of whose mother's upbringing are not to be found in his personality. I will be hard pressed to find a man on whom sisterly affection, for those who have sisters, would not have left a permanent mark. I would be hard pressed to come across those husbands, especially those who are fortunate enough to have caring wives. I will be hard pressed to come across a man whose personality has not developed due to the good fortune they have of having caring and supportive spouses or wives. And each of these examples, according to him, demonstrates that the role that a woman plays in the development of a man's character, a man's personality, is unparalleled. On top of that, he concludes by saying that, needless to say, Islam preaches, and this is Allama Iqbal saying in 1929, Islam preaches complete equality between a man and a woman. I have understood exactly this, he says. I have understood exactly this from a verse of the Quran. Let me now also take you through a little bit of Allama Iqbal's personal leanings and his personal life. My understanding of his life and the way he lived it and the way he expressed his feelings, his personal feelings, he had three inspirations. Two of those inspirations were spiritual and one was a worldly inspiration. The two spiritual inspirations that he had, first was the Quran, because at the age of 4 he had started learning the Quran in a madrasa in Sialkot. That's where his parents sent him. And the kind of love and the kind of respect, the kind of the place that the Quran held in his heart from that age of 4, that small age of 4 years, that respect, that love, that devotion to the Quran lasted until his very last breath, which was early in the morning today, 87 years ago, at the time of the Fajr call for prayer. The second inspiration that he had was again spiritual, was the example of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. The second great inspiration that Allama Iqbal had. So, after those two spiritual inspirations, the third inspiration that he had, the worldly one, was his mother. And when he lost his mother in 1914, now this was 9th of November 1914, it was his 37th birthday. And he wrote in a letter a few days later, and ये उस वक्त ईद उल अज़हा के दिन थे, in 1914 in November. And he starts that letter in Urdu by saying कि इस साल ईद मेरे लिए मुहर्रम का मकाम रखती है. मेरी वालदा लिखते हैं कि जो कुछ अर्सा अलील थी इस जहान से रुखसत हो गई, और he says कि मेरे लिए मेरी ज़िंदगी का मकसद और मेरी ज़िंदगी में आगे बढ़ने की ख्वाहिश सिर्फ मरहूमा के दम से थी, और अब तो ये हाल है कि मौत का इंतज़ार है ज़िंदगी. He was so depressed. He concludes the letter by saying कि मैं तो शायद उस तक ना पहुँच सकूँ, वो मेरे तक, मौत का कहते हैं, वो मेरे तक किसी दिन आ जाएगी. And a few months later, when he was able to get himself back together again, he wrote a long poem in the memory of his mother, which is called Walda Marhuma Ki Yaad Mein. और it is considered उर्दू ज़बान के अजीम तरीन मरसियों में जो है वो शुमार होती है. और मैं by way of example उसके कुछ verses आपको बताऊंगा. So first in English, that he says that if God has given me this good fortune that my name is being written in the stars, it is because of the training and the upbringing that my mother gave me. If my ancestral home has become a repository of respect all over the world, it is because of the training that my mother gave me. And if my life were to be like a book, my mother's teachings would be a golden page in that book. And the comprehensiveness of the lessons she gave me involving spiritual and temporal matters is incomparable to any other personality in my whole life. He says, तरबियत से तेरी मैं अंजुम का हम किस्मत हुआ, घर मेरे अजदाद का सरमाया इज्जत हुआ, दफ्तरे हस्ती में थी जरी वरक तेरी हयात, थी सरापा दीनो दुनिया का सबक तेरी हयात, और उम्र भर तेरी मोहब्बत मेरी खिदमत कर रही, मैं तेरी खिदमत के काबिल रब दिया तू चल बसी. And he also remembers his time as a student, a young man. He says, किसको होगा अब वतन में आह मेरा इंतजार, कौन मेरा खत ना आने से रहेगा बेकरार, खाके मरकत पर तेरी लेकर ये फरियाद आऊँगा. अब दुआए नीम शब में किसको मैं याद आऊँगा. And one of his greatest verses that I've come across again is in memory of his mother from the same poem, जिसमें अगर आप अंग्रेजी में जिसे कहते हैं ना मेटाफॉर का इस्तेमाल, तशबीह जिसे उर्दू में कहेंगे, I have found it stunning when I came across that verse कि अगर तशबीह का भी इस्तेमाल किया है where there is no personal experience involved, but the kind of metaphor he uses to describe the number of memories of his mother that he has, यादें जो हैं वालदा की, उनकी तादाद कितनी है, तो उसको वो कंपेयर नहीं करते कि जी समुद्र में कितनी लहरें हैं या आसमान पे कितने सितारे हैं या anything else. He compares it again, no personal experience because he'd never been there. He says कि मेरे दिल में उतनी ही यादें हैं अपनी वालदा मरहूमा की कि जितनी कि खाना काबा की फ़ज़ा में दुआएं पाई जाती हैं. याद से तेरी दिले बर्दाश्त मामूल, जैसे काबे में दुआओं से फ़ज़ा मामूल है. तो ये आप उससे अंदाज़ा लगा लें कि आज जिस शख्स की डेथ एनिवर्सरी को हम ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं, एंड ये जो टॉपिक है कि विमेन की राइज जो है लीडरशिप में, उसमें हमारा कितना डिस्मल स्टेट है पाकिस्तान का. मैंने आपको कुछ और स्टेटिस्टिक्स भी पेश करनी थी. आई टोल्ड यू कि 36% विमेन इन पाकिस्तान पार्टिसिपेट इन इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज, 24% और 23% are part of the workforce. Any job for which a man earns 1,000 rupees in Pakistan, a woman earns 880 rupees for the same job. There's an 18% disparity in pay also. Now 68% of Pakistan's women work in the agricultural sector. 68% of Pakistan's women, and 76% of them do so without any emoluments, without any pay. In contrast to 24% of men who work without pay in the agricultural sector. तो इसीलिए हमें as a nation, what we need to do is go back to the basics. And going back to the basics means just the example that I gave. What Dr. Iqbal felt, what he wrote to the Muslim Women's Association in Madras in 1929, and he concludes by saying that he believes, he's with the utmost conviction, that Islam preaches equality, complete equality between a man and a woman. And he says that this is what he has understood from a verse of the Quran. उसके अलावा अपने एक पब्लिश पेपर अगेन फ्रॉम मोर देन 100 years ago, औरतों की तालीम के बारे में वो क्या कहते हैं, अल्लामा इकबाल, वो लिखते हैं कि औरत तमद्दुन की जड़ है, वुमन इज द रूट ऑफ ऑल सिविलाइजेशन. लिहाजा इसकी तरफ पूरी तवज्जो जरूरी है. अपनी कौम की औरतों को तालीम के जेवर से आरास्ता करें. मर्द की तालीम सिर्फ एक फर्द वाहिद की तालीम होती है, मगर औरत को तालीम देना हकीकत में तमाम खानदान को तालीम देना है. दुनिया में कोई कौम तरक्की नहीं कर सकती अगर उस कौम का आधा हिस्सा जाहिल मुतलक रह जाए. अभी आपके फादर ऑफ द नेशन तो नहीं, स्पिरिचुअल फादर ऑफ द नेशन जो है वो कह रहे हैं, लिख के कह रहे हैं. Here is something that the father of the nation, Qaeda Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, is known to have said. He said there are two powers in the world. One is the sword and the other is the pen, said Qaeda Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. There is great competition and rivalry between the two. There is a third power, however, stronger than this, that of the woman. ये हज़रत कायद आज़म मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना ने फरमाया. So, I think what I would say, मुझे ये बताया गया था कि I think the time limit is minimum of 8 minutes and maximum of 18 or something. So I think I pretty much crossed the threshold. Going back to the basics में हमें जो है वो बुनियादी तौर पे उन्हीं असूलों की तरफ वापस लौटना होगा अगर हमने तरक्की करनी है। और अगर हमने सेकंड क्लास से नीचे तो हम क्या वी हैव क्या एक मुहावरा अंग्रेजी का होता है कि वी हैव हिट रॉक बॉटम एंड वी आर स्टिल डिगिंग। So if we have reached 145 out of 146 in global gender parity, we can only rise. And in order to rise from that level, we need to go back to our countries, the ideas of our countries' founding fathers on this very subject. कायदे आज़म ने ये भी कहा था कि नो नेशन कैन प्रोग्रेस, जिस तरह भी अल्लामा इकबाल ने कहा कि कोई मुल्क कौम तरक्की नहीं कर सकती कि जब तक उसका आधा हिस्सा जो है वो जाहिल मुतलिक हो, एजुकेटेड ना हो। और कायदे आज़म ने कहा कि नो नेशन कैन प्रोग्रेस अनलेस इट्स मैन एंड इट्स वुमेन स्टैंड शोल्डर टू शोल्डर इन वर्किंग टुवर्ड्स द कंट्रीज प्रोग्रेस। सो पाकिस्तान, आज मैं I was just a little while ago at another event relating to the Allama Iqbal's death anniversary. And over there, I'm just trying to elaborate. I just gave you a few quotations from the two leaders. But now I'm going to tell you what I said just in that other event before coming here. The 5 points I tried to make. And they were derived from a series of letters that Allama Iqbal wrote to Qaid Azam starting from May 1936 until November 1937, a few months before his death. And what you can see from that correspondence, Qaid Azam himself published those letters and wrote the foreword. And he said that these are the letters from the great sage and poet and philosopher of Islam, Dr. Sir Muhammad Iqbal, and they came at a very important juncture in the history of Muslim India. And he said those ideas and those conclusions that Dr. Iqbal has reached, my ideas have been totally in consonance and totally consistent with those, and they found their way eventually in what became known eventually as the Pakistan Resolution, but the Lahore Resolution of 23rd March 1940. And there are 4 or 5 points which stand out. First, Dr. Iqbal refers to Qaid Azam as the only person, the only Muslim in India who can lead the community out of and guide them out of the storm which is not only engulfing northwest India, but the whole of India. So he's the great leader. He's the leader that Dr. Iqbal has chosen, a man who he described as incorruptible and unpurchasable. The second thing that comes across is that he not only does he write to the Qaid in these letters, but he also, in a personal meeting that the two of them had in 1936, this subject came up. Dr. Iqbal told Qaid Azam Muhammad Jinnah, he was known as Mr. Jinnah in those days, not Qaid Azam. So those letters go, dear Mr. Jinnah and yours faithfully Muhammad Iqbal. That's how they start and end. And in between, he says, apart from him being a great leader, he also says that you are not going to meet with any success. And the people, the Muslims of India, are not going to take any interest in you or your policies unless you convert yourself from an institution that represents the elite from an institution that represents the masses. And the masses are the backbone of a nation. That's what Allama Iqbal wrote earlier on, 20-30 years earlier in a research paper he published. But he said to Qaid in his letter, you appeal to the masses, they've taken no interest in you before. Unless you give up the elite and come and appeal to the masses, to the nation at large, you won't be successful. He follows that principle and he succeeds. Qaid Azam did that between 1940 and 1946. The third thing that comes across is he sort of insists on telling the Qaid that you have to come and have a big public meeting in Lahore. That's how your message will resonate all over Muslim India. Finally, in 1940, he does that in 23rd March, two years after Allama Iqbal's death. And Qaid says to his private secretary after the 23rd March big public meeting, the annual conference, he goes to the tomb of Allama Iqbal and he says that, if he had been alive, he would have been so happy because we did exactly what he had advised us to do. So that is the third thing. The fourth thing that comes across in those letters is that, he's constantly saying that you have to improve the condition of the poor, the issue of hunger, the issue of poverty. You have to lift the masses out of that. And the economic system of Islam I have carefully studied, he says, to the Qaeda. And he says that a system of social democracy with some minor modifications is nothing revolutionary in the concept of the Islamic economic system, but a return to the original purity of Islam. So here are certain other principles which I am trying to elaborate upon to emphasize that the founding fathers of the country envisaged a socially democratic order. जिस तरह स्कैंडिनेवियन कंट्रीज में होता है, एक मुस्लिम रिफॉर्मर थे about from 200 years ago, Muhammad Abdul. He went to the Scandinavian, he used to travel a lot. He was from this part of the world, but he went to the Scandinavian countries, even in those days. And what he observed was कि मैं वहाँ गया और मैंने देखा कि वहाँ मुसलमान तो कहीं नहीं थे, लेकिन इस्लाम हर तरफ नजर आ रहा था। और मैं यहाँ आया तो मुसलमान तो हर तरफ थे, लेकिन इस्लाम कहीं नजर नहीं आता। So that's the kind of system. Those Pakistan came into existence in consequence of a completely democratic struggle, a struggle which was a democratic and constitutional struggle, and its progress. And the thing is that if there are issues of governance that we have regarding education of women, regarding participation of women, and I think at the root of all of it, to actually make it possible in leading positions, अब आप ये देखें, ये भी नोट कीजिए कि managerial positions में in the corporate world, women's representation in Pakistan is 0.14%, men's representation is about 3%. वो disparity जो है वो कितनी ज़्यादा है हर strata और हर level के ऊपर. So अगर हमारे पास democratic order जो है proper, we are not possessed of that. तो I'll give you my opinion. मेरे नज़दीक जो है वो फिर आपको गवर्नेंस जो है वो ठीक से नहीं मिल सकती, और अगर डेमोक्रेटिक ऑर्डर नहीं है जो कि पाकिस्तान के क़याम की बुनियाद है, अगर डेमोक्रेटिक ऑर्डर नहीं है, जेन्युइनली डेमोक्रेटिक ऑर्डर, तो फिर गवर्नेंस भी नहीं होगी, और अगर गवर्नेंस नहीं होगी तो गुड गवर्नेंस भी नहीं होगी. तो आई वुड लाइक टू क्लोज विद an interesting letter that Allama Iqbal wrote on the 30th of December 1915 to his close friend Raja Krishnan Prasad. वो कहते हैं कि लंदन में एक अंग्रेज ने मुझसे पूछा कि तुम मुसलमान हो? मैंने कहा हाँ, तीसरा हिस्सा, 1/3. वो हैरान होकर बोला, किस तरह? मैंने अर्ज की कि नबी करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम फरमाते हैं, मुझे तुम्हारी दुनिया से 3 चीजें पसंद हैं, नमाज, खुशबू और औरत. मुझे इन तीनों में से सिर्फ एक पसंद है. दैट एक्सप्लेन्स द 1/3. मुझे इन तीनों में से सिर्फ एक पसंद है, मगर इस तखय्युल की दाद देनी चाहिए कि नबी करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने औरत का जिक्र 2 लतीफ तरीन चीजों के साथ किया है. हकीकत यह है कि औरत निज़ाम आलम की खुशबू और कल्ब के लिए नमाज की हैसियत रखती है. थैंक यू.